So I've actually threatened during maybe a very stressful period at work to move to the Keys and become a dolphin trainer. I've threatened that.
That's great. Yeah, that's actually a great position to take.
Yeah, dolphin trainer. Making cocktails out of coconuts or something like that. That would have been really good.
Welcome, everybody, to The Contractor and the Accountant. My name is Todd Whalen. I am your contractor.
And I'm Shannon Sheridan, your accountant.
We are so excited today to have Ms. Sue Harker with Sembler Companies. Sue is the current Vice President of Property Management. More than 30 years at Sembler, and you oversee well over probably 13 million square feet at Sembler. You bring a vast amount of experience in management, leasing, evaluations, outparcel sales, and have a very hands-on approach to your projects, along with yourself, your team, Sembler as a company as a whole. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. You've been at Sembler now for 30 years. We were talking briefly before we got started, and I kind of want to just kind of come back around to that. 30 years at a company, the culture, the familyness of it all. Walk us through that. What keeps you there for 30 years?
Sembler is definitely a family-owned company, and they approach their employees as family. We all really feel like we're an extension of the Sembler family. They really take good care of their employees. We work hard for them, and they take really good care of us. Our culture is... I don't remember a time before Sembler at this point. I have worked for other companies in the past. Yeah. Although I'd like to say that I started at Sembler when I was 12 because, then that explains the 30 years. So, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not going to talk about when I really started.
That's a family organization, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right? It really family organization.
Yes. So there was a time that I was in different places where you did not feel as appreciated or valued as you do at the Sembler company. And like I said, they take really good care of us. I've raised my 3 children at Sembler. I mean, my oldest daughter was 1 when I started there.
Oh, wow.
So I've been able to have my career and be very active in my children's lives because of the way that the company approaches that. And that everything from being able to be at a school function or going on field trips or working from home if one of them is sick or something like that. So it's been
now that your children have all pretty much grown up 30 years, you're still at Sembler, you're still grinding it out every single day. The overlap, we were talking earlier about your personal, professional lives and how that overlap where you're at this family organization. You've raised your family around it. Now the family's kind of gone on. They're starting their own families. You have some grandchildren. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so where do you draw the line between my personal life and my professional life?
They overlap quite often. I mean, last weekend, for example, my 2 youngest daughters and I were out shopping, and I get a call that there's a problem at our headquarters, Sembler Center, and we had to drop what we were doing, and we all went to the building, and we took care of what was happening, and they've become accustomed to that at this point. My middle daughter is actually kind of, I think, entertaining the idea of going into property management herself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where 2004 hurricane season, we're driving through Orlando to assess damage. The kids are in the back. Like, let's hook up this tree onto the back of the truck and pull it out of the way. It's like, it's just,
we're circling right back to that child labor thing.
Yeah.
Family organization, everybody works there, right? Okay.
Yeah, so they've grown up around it. They know what to expect.
And now she wants to possibly go into property management.
She does, yeah. And, they've hear me on phone calls over the years with either tenants or vendors or owners or whatever. And it became a joke at our house, the angry mom voice, like, who's mom talking to? Do you hear that out there? They pop their heads out. It's not me. Okay, she's talking to somebody on the phone for work.
Nice. So, well, tell me how has your tenure at Sembler evolved from when you first started through until today?
Okay.
And where did you start at Sembler?
Yeah.
I started as I was managing a property in Brevard County. The name of the property is Sarno Plaza, and I was for a different company. And that property was purchased by a investor that had a relationship with Sembler. Sembler managed a property for them in Palm Harbor, I believe. And so when they purchased the property, they were bringing Sembler on to manage it, and Sembler needed somebody on that side of the state to actually manage the asset for them. So I started working for them at that point. They offered me a job, and they took over the property. I kind of came with the property, and in doing that, I had 2 other properties that I was managing at that time for the owner that I was working for then, or the company I was working for then, that decided to come with me. So there's a property that we still have now that we're managing
to this day
that came with me from my prior company. So I've been involved in that project for like 33 years at this point.
Oh, wow.
Have you been back to the property?
Oh, yeah, I
over
still
the
got
years?
and
You still
it
go back
is
to
like one of my kids. Like it feels like one of my kids. It's kind of stayed with me this whole time.
After 33 years.
Yeah. And that owner that came with me to Sembler at that point sold the property to us. Then we bought it through our investment funds, and we owned it for a while, and now we've sold it to another owner. This past year we sold it, and then they've hired us to continue to manage the property.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's one of those that I can't get rid of,
Yeah.
It just kind of sticks around.
Yeah. I have those, yeah.
A testament to what you do for sure. Currently, as VP of Property Management, I would assume you're overseeing a much larger team of people.
I have 9 people that work on my
underneath
team.
you.
Yes.
And so how do you tackle that on a daily basis? You still jump into the field and deal with the catastrophes of the day. Walk me through that.
So the managers that are working for me, most of them have been around for a long time and kind of know our system
Also been at
this
Sembler
point.
for probably
For a while,
15,
yeah.
20 years.
Yeah,
Sounds
like
like everybody over there has like a minimum 5-year tenure.
We have a lot of tenure at our company. Like if you went through the halls and asked everybody how long have you been here, I mean, most people you're going to hear have been there at this point for 10 plus years.
Wow.
And because we don't really have a lot of turnover, it's unusual to have somebody that's only been there
Are you
for a
currently
couple of years.
hiring? Is there growth?
We
at
just
Sembler?
hired a
I
new
saw
a new
something
manager.
on your
How often,
LinkedIn,
how
yeah.
often do you fill up positions?
It's really when somebody leaves. I remember I've been around long enough to remember a time when we were 161 employees.
How many do you have now?
About 40.
Oh, wow.
So that was 2007 when the recession hit, and then we really downsized
Oh,
and
yeah,
we
yeah. I
adjusted
think
kind of what
everybody
we were
did.
doing also. So at that point we were building more power centers and multi-use projects and different things like that, and we really went back to kind of our bread and butter and what we know works, and that's grocery anchored shopping centers. And
Be specific to be terrific.
yeah. And we have a fantastic relationship with Publix. We've developed, I think at this point, probably 75 Publix shopping centers over the years, and we continue to do that. We opened, I think, 3 last year. We've got others that we're working on now, and then some that are in our pre-development pipeline for 3 to 4 years from now that we'll be finishing up. So we've got a really good relationship with them, and that's we kind of scaled back to that and have continued on that
And
track.
then you service
since then.
all the other supporting tenants of the center as
Absolutely,
well with
yeah.
all the different services Sembler offers. Fantastic.
Yeah, so what would you say is probably, with your tenure of 30 years in the industry, what would you say is probably the biggest challenges that you face?
I think that it's our job all day long to administer leases that people have obligated themselves to and didn't necessarily understand what they were signing up for.
Right.
So we're constantly having those conversations with tenants and explaining to them the detail of what they agreed to when they signed these leases. And a lot of times, say it could be somebody that flipped pizza when they were in high school, so they decided they want to open a pizzeria, and they really don't have the concept of
the experience,
all the things that come along with that.
Next thing you know, they're paying rent and they haven't even
not paying
yet.
rent.
Yeah, we were just talking to a pizzeria guy that he didn't realize, I think, what he got into, and he's been doing it for about 10 years now, and you could tell he's a little burned out.
Yeah,
It's become a JOB.
And it's a lot. It really is. I mean, I've been doing this long enough I would never open a restaurant.
What do you see it to be?
He
So it's funny. We're writing books. She's going to publish hers. I'll publish mine simultaneously. But it's Just Don't Do It: A Contractor's Guide to Restaurant.
Right.
I'm not lying. That's exactly what it is. I wrote it
I
know with a company here locally. But
He's got to publish it.
Hey,
though.
I've
we're
threatened
gonna
to write a
publish
book
it soon.
about property management many times. Maybe I
Yeah.
should get into just get started on that.
Yeah.
I thought about doing a book called Confessions of an EA Enrolled Agent. What I've heard.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of great coffee table book ideas. That's for sure.
Yeah.
When you have a Publix shopping center, you have a multitude of tenants in there, everything from national account chains to franchisees, so national account chains that are corporate owned,
Right.
to franchisees that are just buying a franchise, maybe they're buying a UPS store or some
Right.
sort of salon brand or
Right.
something, to those private. I'm Vinny, I'm from Brooklyn, I
Mom
was
and
in
pops. Yeah.
security my whole life, but now I'm retired and
Yeah.
I'm going to open a pizzeria.
Right.
Right. The challenge of all three of those, and I'm sure they all bring their own special, unique challenges. Even at a corporate level, some national accounts can be pretty difficult to deal with.
Right.
How do you balance the challenges between all three? You end up wearing multiple hats throughout the day.
You do, and it's property management is a relationship business for sure.
Yes.
You have to be able to have conversations with people and develop those relationships, and be the manager that's going out while you're on site and popping in to see tenants throughout your trip there.
Yep.
Not to say, hey, I got a problem, but just how's your day going? Anything that you need from me. Is there anything that I can take care of for you? Are there any issues
That
going on in the
personal
shopping
touch.
center that I need to know about? Yeah. And you over time will you'll learn a little bit about their family, and you're not creating a really deep in-depth relationship with them, but you are creating this where you can go in now that you've had this connection with them, and you can say, we've got a problem, and this is the problem, and I need your help to figure this out. Instead of just going in and dropping a hammer on somebody and having them become really defensive with you, that's the worst way to deal with tenants in shopping centers.
Well, I think we were talking about that earlier with emotional intelligence. That was my key word for the year.
Yeah.
It's just those that can't handle the emotion side of things, and then I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
It gets nowhere.
You
to
get
do that.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. You really get nowhere. And that is emotional intelligence is really key for being able to handle a job like this.
And keep the tenants.
Yeah.
Because
you'll go
they just want you to take care of the problem.
You're dealing with the chaos of, a water line burst, it's spread water through a multitude of tenants, and you have to be calm for the tenant. But then you got to get it on the phone to somebody like me, the contractor. You better get out here right now. Water
Right.
Oh, no, don't you worry. Don't you worry, Salon. We're going to have this back up for you.
That's the way it is in construction,
They're on
too.
their way
Right,
now.
right.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
But that also goes right back to relationships. And, I tell my managers all the time, you need to hire the vendors that are going to respond to you because of your relationship with them when you call them at 2:00 in the morning and you have an emergency.
Exactly.
You need to know they're going to get out of bed because of you,
Right.
not because of the relationship that they have with me. So I always empower them. These are, this is kind of like your ecosystem, and you've got to figure out how all of these pieces work together and how these people are going to respond to you.
Right.
So hiring really good vendors and knowing that you can trust them to do the things that you're going to need done, even when it may be really inconvenient for it to be done, is very important in our worlds.
Yeah, we have a vetting process too, and you could tell the ones that we just hire because we need it done versus the ones that we have the relationship with. And he has a saying where he says, treat this job as if it was your mother's.
Yeah.
You know, how would you?
You're doing it for your own mom.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, that's really good. I may steal that.
Yeah.
Always,
Go ahead.
But here's an even better one, though. Always do good work at a profit if you can, at a loss if you must.
Right.
But always good work.
Yeah.
Another one we live by.
Definitely. Definitely.
So, what got you started? Said, I want to be in commercial real estate.
I think like most
Slave labor.
people,
Yeah.
You fell into it.
I think like most people, I completely fell into it, and I'm a little bit of an anomaly.
How did you start?
Because I don't have a college degree,
Right.
so I came to this. I think I was 20 years old, and started working as a concierge for a high-rise office building in West Palm Beach. So I'm the person sitting in the lobby as people are coming in and out and answering questions and all this other stuff. And, one of my friends at the time got me that job. She was being promoted to something else, and I took her job.
Nice.
So I just kind of worked my way up. I went from there to an administrative assistant to an assistant property manager to
Within the
a
same
property
company?
manager. No, I actually was only at that company for a couple of years, and then I went to a different company. I got married at the time in '91 and moved to Brevard County.
So your whole career started off with,
Yeah.
concierge over there
Yeah.
because of a friend who
Yeah.
needed to fill that position.
Right. So I when people come to me now and they're like, how when I talk to young people about coming into the property management world, a lot of times they have I had no idea that kind of a job existed.
Right.
Which I think most people, don't. When you're talking, unless you're really in commercial real estate, you have no idea what kind of role that is.
Right.
So it's just something that I evolved in over time. And then when I started with Sembler, I started dabbling with leasing also. So there was a point in my career with them that I was doing both.
Right.
I was leasing properties and managing those same properties, so I couldn't promise anything on the leasing side that I couldn't deliver on the property management side. And I think that I think now all leasing agents should have some time in property management. They should be out in the field working.
Like all architects and engineers should spend some time on the job site.
Because there's just stuff that doesn't.
Well, that's a nice thing. Like I do the accounting and I handle all the internal operations, but I get to go to the job site maybe every 3 or 4 months.
Right.
And it's nice to be able to see the tangible product behind all these invoices, behind all of the administrative work that we do in the office. So, and I get so excited and Yeah, it's just nice.
Yeah,
so
the
I think
field
it's so just the same thing with accounting. When you work for a construction company, it gives you a different outlook of what's actually going on.
Right.
Yeah. So I agree. I think having that experience.
I definitely think it makes you more well-rounded, and you understand how the things that you're talking about and that you're dealing with through the lease negotiation, you understand how those are actually going to be applied and work in the real
Get
world.
the full picture
when the tenant is actually in there and operating. So I definitely think that's a benefit that I was able to bring by having both sides of that. And then there was a time that I gave up my property management role and was just acting as a leasing agent for a time. And then they offered me to come over to move to Pinellas and actually run the department. That was in 2013. So
you're fairly recent transplant for the most part to Tampa.
Yeah, so like 12 years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
But you were an East Coast girl.
I was.
Yeah, he was.
Brevard County.
Yeah.
I'm an East Coast guy.
Yeah. So
which side's better?
West Coast got no love
so
for the
much.
East Coast.
There's so much more to do over here. There really is.
I think it's friendlier over here at times.
Yeah.
Well, especially networking.
Where I was living
The
before.
water's calmer.
The water is definitely
a lot
ocean is
calmer. Yes.
Yeah,
I lived in
definitely.
Jacksonville for a while.
And I think that kind of transcends into just the overall way of life here.
Yeah. Well, and where
Let's take a look at the
where
ocean.
we lived in Brevard County, Melbourne area, and when we first moved there, it was just still this sleepy little beach town. We had friends. We would moved up from West Palm Beach and had friends that would come up, and they were like, even the flies are slow in Melbourne, So it has definitely grown over the years. It's not quite as little small and sleepy anymore, but I definitely have enjoyed living over
the
here.
city of Flagler Beach, they should be just getting ready to top out or finish up the first really national brand hotel in all of Flagler Beach. It'll be Margaritaville.
Yeah.
Other than that, that place has really just been the sleepiest little beach town, and you wouldn't believe it because it's just right there off I-95.
Right. Yeah.
Flagler Beach, right in between, St. Augustine and Daytona.
Right.
It was just absolutely beautiful. But yeah, sleepy, untouched.
Yeah.
Untouched, yeah, but it's commercialized now. So.
Yeah, everything's commercialized now over there for
Absolutely.
sure.
I know.
The sprawling. So with that development, right, everything grows, everything develops. Sembler, you mentioned you develop a lot of public shopping centers, right? And so there seems to be like a common theme when you go to a standard public shopping center. You got the Chinese restaurant, you got the hair salon, you got the UPS store, you got the NCAP restaurant, right? It seems like Publix and Sembler and the major developers of grocery-anchored shopping centers follow that. Is there a set formula? It's like when you run out of space, it's like, no, I can't lease you that space. We're waiting on the UPS store guy to show up.
Yeah. There is definitely the usual suspects list,
right,
for sure. So,
and you just make those calls as soon as you get site plan approval.
Yeah. So our leasing team is going out with, we'll have a site plan well ahead of the development ever actually starting, and we'll be kind of working towards getting those pieces in line. And they'll do a merchandising plan, and that merchandising plan will include the usual suspects, and then they'll go out to those tenants, and those are, they call them the low-hanging fruit in our office. Like, let's knock those out of get those out of the way, and kind of guide them to the spots in the center where we feel they'll be most effective, and we'll leave our larger end cap spaces open for.
Well, it'd be
restaurant
easier to
tenants and
fill
things like that.
probably once it's all the middles kind of taken care of as well.
And then the out parcels seem to be the little redheaded stepchildren of the development deal. Those can be a combination of a lot of different things.
Yeah, although I will tell you that that's the out parcels are really where our profit is.
Yeah,
that is because
typically
that is
ground
definitely
lease or sale, or
we tend to lean towards
build-to-suit.
ground lease. But especially the last few years, that is, we have a big project that we're working on right now in like Lehigh Acres area. That's going to be a really large project, and they're already working on the out parcels, and they've got tenants lined up to take those spots. Like there's a really big demand down there.
Right.
We were at Retail Live
Last
recently. And that was the sense from, 150 some retailers that showed up for that event was send us the deal, send us the deal, send us the deal. Yeah, they are so hungry to get their hands on opportunity.
Yeah, so it's been, it's, and you see the change in the fluctuations in the market, but we are definitely at that spot with that right now where they're getting multiple offers on out parcels, and basically what's the highest and best use for this parcel, and that's kind of the direction that they're going in right now.
And you look at the community as a whole, so you're like, well, there's a multitude of, say, car washes or auto repair shops or fast food restaurants. You don't want to turn into Restaurant Row. So will Sembler, say, listen, I know this fast food chain will take this out parcel in an instant, but there's too much in the area already. We don't really want to we want to bring added value to the community. So do you look to do that from a communal standpoint?
We do, and then
you'll hold off
also
on a deal because it's really, you don't really feel that that's right for the community.
Right. I will tell you for sure, we would not put like a Raising Cane's right next to a Chick-fil-A. We would not do that. Like that would definitely not happen. They're going to be looking for what's going to be the best mix for the property. Awesome. Now, do we end up sometimes where we've got that last one that we can't seem to make something happen, and we end up taking a deal that may not be a great fit? That has definitely happened before. But for the most part, they are looking to create a desirable mix of tenants on those out parcels that are going to actually draw traffic.
Are you seeing any type of trends as far as businesses that 30 years ago you wouldn't have seen? I'm sure with all your experience and all the number of tenants that you have, what's probably been the most unique type of tenant?
Oh gosh, I would say even especially since COVID, but also I think with the recession in 2007, 2008, we've really moved away from your typical like retail tenant being like a Hallmark cards or something
Clothing
like that,
store,
right? You're not really seeing those kind of tenants
I'm
anymore.
seeing a lot of Hallmark stores kind of closing.
Closing,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, the mailing, isn't what it used
It's
to be.
right. So as that kind of stuff has really changed, so we are definitely moving more into service-oriented tenants now. There's even been a little bit of a flip from restaurants. We aren't seeing quite as many restaurants, and the restaurants that we are seeing are more fast casual.
Right.
And now we're medical tenants. We're still the nail salons because you really can't. I mean, unless you're doing your nails at home, it's not like you can't recreate that experience somewhere else, right? So nail salons are still a big thing.
It's not the same
nail
rubbing
salon, hair salon,
rubbing your own feet than somebody else.
Drop off and pick up dry clean location, right?
Although dry cleaning, it's been a long time since we've signed a dry cleaning lease.
Really?
It's been a long time since we've signed a tanning salon lease. Like that used to be something where you'd have one in every center. You're just not.
Like in the
that isn't
90s, I
something
bet you that
anymore.
was huge.
Yeah.
I know
Right.
I
Now
was
it's
in
cold
tanning
pods.
salon.
They went from baking in the sun to freezing in the
Right.
ice.
So now, yes, doing the
right?
cold plunge.
Today,
or-
coffee is good for you. Yeah. Next week, it won't be.
It won't
so
be.
good.
We've done leases now with like the wellness centers where they've got like the cryotherapy stuff and the red light therapy, and they do the
red light,
what do they call the vampire facials and stuff like that.
Right,
Yes,
walk-ins.
we've got a lease with one of those tenants in Dunedin, and they have this whole laundry list of things that you can go in and do for yourself, from the IV treatments to everything else.
From a
so
service-based business standpoint, our experience has been, if you're a service-based business, you really have to deliver an experience,
Absolutely.
not just a service.
Absolutely, and I think that's even more like that. That requirement has grown over the last few years.
Yeah, so you see more of a collaboration of multiple service-based businesses kind of coming together under one roof.
Right.
And providing a multitude of services.
Right,
it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think everybody is looking for that next experience that they're going to post about on their reels on Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say your most rewarding would be over the tenure that you've had with Sembler?
Project-wise, I still go back to the very first tear down and rebuilds of a Publix that I was involved in. It's in Port St. Lucie in 2010. The center was Rivergate Plaza, and we went in, negotiated a new lease with Publix, tore the building down, and rebuilt them a new store. Mm-hmm. We had a very condensed time frame that we had to do that. It had to be finished in 7 months, so we were working 24 hours.
From demo to
demo to CO to 7 months.
So the contractor was out there working 24 hours a day. We had inspectors that were coming at night to keep the work rolling. And that this particular center, the store was right in the middle of the retail, so retail on both sides, and we kept every one of those tenants open and operating. Any rent that we gave during the term of the construction, we were able to get it back on the other side by increasing rent after the store opened. So that was definitely one of my most rewarding projects. Now, since then, I've been involved with many others. We've done, I think I've been involved in at least 6 other tear down and rebuilds. None of them quite as fun as that one, because that was the first one.
Yeah. Always remember your first one.
They're all the same after that.
Yeah.
Once you did one.
Yeah, but that was definitely a lot of fun. And then I get a lot of enjoyment out of taking someone that's kind of on the same career path that I did, someone that started at the very bottom and has worked their way up. One of my best managers in St. Pete now started as a temporary receptionist at Sembler and has worked her way up.
Oh, wow.
And is now
that's
one
a
of my
good
senior
testament.
managers, and she actually is helping train other managers that are coming onto our team. So she's fantastic. She'll probably have my job one day.
Oh, come on. You're going to be there another 30
I
years,
was gonna
right?
say, you got at least another 20, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
When you're not at work, you have a lot of time spent volunteering and philanthropic. Tell me a little bit about the Salvation Army Angel Tree program. You spoke briefly about it before.
So that is definitely my favorite
Passion
volunteer project that we do every year. And the Salvation Army Angel Tree They service the community and underprivileged kids. So if your family is struggling financially, you can go in and actually put your kids into that program, and they get to fill out their little list of things that they want for Christmas. And they put the angel trees out at different locations throughout the area. There's typically one at every mall, and the little tags are on the trees. So at Sembler, we go in and we actually will be there for the shopping days, the gathering days, where all of the tags are taken, and you have to go and pull all of the things that were on that list and put it into the bags and secure them in the spot for the family to come pick them up. Or we also do the distribution days where the families are coming in and actually picking up those items. So we buy things for that.
You got to figure out how to do it twice a year, and that way you can have Christmas in July.
I know that would be
it's
fun.
Florida.
Yeah. So that's a really rewarding one. We love doing that, and my kids have loved that because we've always gone out every year. We would go to the tree, and they all would pick a angel off the tree that's kind of their age bracket, and then they would get to go shop for those kids.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, I think it's very important, especially if a company gets involved, to help out with the community, because this is our community, and so we team up with Metropolitan Ministries, Feeding Tampa Bay, and things like that, and Directions for Living. So
yeah.
And then a lot of the local just business networking organizations as well, and their philanthropic endeavors. We always like to support everybody that we supports us. So.
Right.
You're in a few local organizations: ICSE, Crew Tampa Bay, TBRA, Tampa Bay Retail Alliance. Tampa, for me, has always been one of the most amazing, say, business communities. Very welcoming, very open. How often do you get a chance to go around networking with Sembler, your philanthropic endeavors, networking with the local community, growth? How much of that has been targeted just here in Tampa? How often do you get, how far does Sembler reach?
So we are our territory.
You're southeast.
We're southeast, but we have our furthest north property is Culpeper, Virginia.
Oh wow!
Okay.
And
wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, and we just closed on a property in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, so you're growing.
So we're expanding
a
little bit.
Do you get to travel a lot now that you're?
I've always been able to do that. At least in this role that I'm in now since 2013, getting out. So we've got a large portfolio in the Atlanta market. We've got, I think, 7 properties kind of in that major Atlanta market. And then we have a property in Tennessee that we built, a Publix center that opened last year. We've got one in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, one in St. Augustine, both projects that we built with Publix over the last couple of years. So yeah, I get to go out to those places and put my eyes on them.
You get to go out to the field too.
Yeah,
it's nice,
isn't it?
Yeah,
it's neat.
Honestly, I think that's probably one of the things that I love about my job the most. You never have the same day twice.
Yeah.
And
it's challenging.
No two projects are ever the same.
No two projects
no two
are the
tenants
same. Right. You're always doing something different. And yes, those days that you get out in the market and I can actually be on the property and talking with people and not sitting behind your desk. It's good.
It is nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you weren't in real estate,
oh my goodness,
what would you have done? Right? If you could do it
you
all over again.
You didn't get that job as a concierge.
Yeah.
That friend of yours, she wasn't that great of a friend. You know what I mean? And she actually referred you to something that was really sour. So you moved on very quickly.
If you could have a magic wand, what else? What would have you in the beginning?
Coulda, woulda. Click your heels 3 times.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Okay, so I've actually threatened during maybe a very stressful period at work to move to the Keys and become a dolphin trainer. I've threatened that.
That's great. Yeah, that's actually a great position to take.
Yeah, dolphin trainer. Making cocktails out of coconuts or something like that. That would have been really good. I probably would have been a therapist or something like that. Probably.
People person?
Yeah.
People person,
nice.
Yeah. I actually share a whole lot of that type of wisdom with my team at work, and they're always like, you should start charging for this kind of like this kind of feedback. So.
That's really what's kept everybody there at the 30 years.
Yeah, right.
Very therapeutic.
What's a book you've read recently that you would recommend?
Yeah.
Let Them by Mel Robbins, the Let Them Theory.
What's that? Tell us about it.
People can get so and it really. I want my whole team to read it because it really applies to what we do. when you're dealing with other people in your life, whether it's an ex-husband or your children or your parents or people that are at work or whatever that are kind of creating negative energy with you, or that don't agree with you, or they're doing something that you don't agree with, let them. It doesn't have anything to do with me.
Right.
Yeah.
I protect my energy and let them do whatever it is that they're going to do.
I love that you said that protecting your energy, because we're all made up of energy.
Yeah.
And if depending on who you're around, if they're on a lower energy level,
Absolutely.
they will bring you down.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've got to rise our vibration for sure.
Exactly.
Or your emotional intelligence for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that helps with emotional intelligence when you're on a higher vibration.
Right. And I used to actually have this in a frame in my office that said, take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space.
Right.
Like, don't come in here with your hair on fire and spinning around in circles about something that's really small, because you drop that on everybody else.
Right.
Like we can all sit here and very calmly talk through the things that need to happen.
Right.
But when you come in with that type of energy, it does end up bringing everybody else down around you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, what piece of advice would you have for someone coming in and just starting in the commercial real estate realm?
Critical thinking is
another good one.
Probably one of the biggest things. Problem
Yes.
solving and critical thinking is what I'm looking for. And I'm probably kind of a little bit of an anomaly. I've had the most success bringing people into on our team to be eventually a manager that don't have any experience.
I've noticed sometimes that's also true in accounting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they've learned, or also
even in construction.
Yeah.
Sure. I started.
They learn
with
bad
the labor.
habits, and you have to break them.
Right.
So sometimes it's easier if they're just a clean slate.
Right, and I find it's also easier because, like I said before, like we're a little different at Sembler. I mean, we expect people to work. There's not a whole lot of admin work there where somebody else is going to take care of these little things that you don't want to deal with.
It's interesting. You've grown as a company, but you've shrunken as a staff. So at one point in time, you were as large as you were well over 100, 160 some people.
40 now.
And now you're 40 people.
Yeah.
Right. But,
I'm assuming you have
managing more
metrics
square footage of real estate simultaneously.
Yeah.
So you've grown and shrunk in all the right areas.
Right.
What would you say your keys to success for that is? Yeah. Is it metrics? Is it culture? Is it
technology efficiency allows you to have fewer people?
Yeah, I think it's culture. I would love to say we are technology efficient. We are probably a little behind the curve on that. We don't typically
construction in general, I think is.
Yeah. We don't typically jump into the latest and greatest thing. We're maybe like 5 years behind where other companies are.
AI needs to start writing your leases pretty soon. Yeah.
I know, and that's I did that AI thing with Crew to find it because I haven't really played around with it. So the whole ChatGPT thing, it's
we actually got all our questions from ChatGPT doing a background check on all our guests.
Did you really? Yeah.
And it did it in like a minute.
Seconds, right? Yeah. So I have to remind myself to use it.
Oftentimes
it's my assistant.
I'll go to send an email sometimes, and I'll write an email and I'll go, that sounds a little rude. It's kind of coming off a little too much of my personality comes out of my email writing sometimes.
So
I'll just tell ChatGPT, write this very happy professional. Give me a happy professional.
Happy professional, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, it looks good.
And then I'll reread it and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want.
That's exactly
that's what I really felt.
Within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because it's tough. You come along pretty harsh in an email sometimes. So
I know.
AI technology, just advancements, all the different apps. There's an app for everything.
I taught a class at the Builders Expo. It was called Embracing AI, because there's an app for that. Because there's an app for everything.
Right.
And you got to be careful, because you start spending all this time on these apps, they can suck your energy.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so what's your go-to relaxing outside of work thing that you do?
I love live music. I love spending time with my kids and my grandkids. I have recently, the last couple of years, really become passionate about hiking, like getting out and actually chasing waterfalls. We just got back from a spring break trip where that is what we did. We chased waterfalls in Georgia, in North Georgia, and just
I love North Carolina with the waterfalls.
We did a couple of waterfall hikes.
They say that there's positive energy ions when you're around the waterfalls, and they just give you that good energy and uplift. It's the energy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Back to the energy.
Yeah. So I used to be really more of a beach person. I was always wanted to be at the beach, and now I've gotten kind of that taste of the mountains and the waterfalls, and that's kind of where I want to be all the time now.
Okay.
So when
it's hard
you
to find in Florida.
I know.
We got lazy rivers.
We got flat land.
Fantastic, beautiful rivers.
I know.
Yeah, not too much on the waterfall side.
Yeah.
If you could have lunch with any historical figure you wanted, who would it be?
Wow.
Who would you really want to sit down with?
Who would I really want to sit down with? Oh my goodness. I would maybe want to sit down with Lady Diana.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
What questions would you ask her?
She was so like poised, and I love her. She had such a caring, giving heart, and the people that she helped going out. And,
her energy was kind.
Yeah, very kind. So that would definitely probably be the direction that I would want to go in.
Probably one of the few people that were like the epitome of, say, a swan on top of the water, but underneath the little feet just going crazy, that nobody ever really sees.
Yeah.
The life that she lived, the type of person she was. She was always very polished.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
never saw her lose her.
Yeah, I know.
But she didn't have an angry mom
did.
voice.
I mean, I don't think she ever had like a blooper or a what the hell are you doing, really?
Yeah.
Get that off,
Yeah.
Hot mic
I have a feeling
with Lady
Kate
Di.
has.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel like she probably had a very high level of emotional intelligence. How about that? Yeah.
Yes.
And
Very
I feel like
calm.
that is something that definitely you grow into that. I mean, I know I did. I can remember the early years of doing this where I'd have a tenant leave me in tears on the phone. I mean, that wouldn't happen now because now I'm like, okay, let them. They're going to yell at me.
Let them.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't do it.
So let me ask you. Okay, so switching back to work and everything, tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys worried about anything that is because right now that's kind of like the buzzword?
It is definitely the buzzword for sure.
Because we're like steel.
We're just market volatility, let's say, as a whole.
Right.
Interest rates.
We're definitely watching the tariffs for sure. We're watching to see what's going to happen with that. That's going to affect things like our roof replacements that we're doing, and our development team for sure is AC equipment. Yeah, all of that stuff. So. We're definitely paying attention to that to just kind of see what's happening, and our contractors and vendors are like kind of letting us know.
I know. I feel like there's a holding pattern right now.
We've seen this pattern in our industry over the years. I remember back when oil went well over $100 a barrel and gas was $4 or $5 a gallon for a brief period in time.
Right.
Diesel shot
up. We were getting
and
fuel surcharges.
We were having to go back to our customers and get additional monies for all this increase. Cost and delivery stuff
COVID.
Like that, and then there was a concrete shortage at one point in time as well, and you couldn't buy a yard of concrete anywhere. That had shut down jobs. So I see this as just another one of those hurdles, bumps. It's never a smooth road. The construction and real estate industries. Right.
No.
So that's one you definitely got to work at.
Right. You definitely have a different day every day.
Every day. Every day. Yeah. So we're paying attention to it for sure, and we're trying to lock in pricing where we can and get the material in ahead of that. So. And you're right. We, especially after COVID. I mean, my gosh, we were trying to do some roof replacements at that time.
The supply chain issues was that was horrible.
It was really bad.
We had lead times were horrible during that time.
We had an air conditioning unit that went down in our building, and it took us 25 weeks to get that new equipment in.
We had one.
They don't stock anything. Yeah. That's another.
We had one. It was in August. I think we had ordered the AC equipment. It didn't get in until May.
Right.
It was it's not our fault, but a lot of times the owner looks at the GC going, why? And you're like, my hands are tied.
Right. We were having issues with like the electrical
Managing.
switch
Electrical,
gear.
the electrical.
switchgear,
Yeah.
We had that on a
Siemens.
salon suite.
Yeah. So that was for Publix. So like the switch gear for Publix, and it was taking like 12 months for that to come in. So then we got to the
Wow.
point where we were buying one and having it ready for the next project.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that we always had one on hand
one
to
in
work
the
towards the
pipeline.
next one. Yeah.
Yeah, we work with vendors where they buy the AC units up front.
You'll buy 100 units.
Yeah.
Yeah.
National account vendors,
Yeah,
they'll buy
national
100
account.
units
Yeah.
worth of switchgear, AC units, lighting packages.
Right.
Yeah, signage. You know, they're building signage. They'll build 100 signs.
Right. I feel like the other
Warehousing.
thing that we're really struggling with right now is the quality of the new equipment.
Right.
Is not so. Going back
They
to
don't
our
make
building
anything
again.
like they used to.
No.
So
Sue, not even us.
our original our
We're
original
a dying breed too, girl. When we're gone, I mean, really, it's good. How many people would you say it would take to replace you today?
Oh my gosh.
3, 4 new
Yeah,
hires?
probably
It's the same
probably
with
3
us.
for sure. Yeah, 3 for sure.
Yeah, that's why your AC unit goes out after 8 years instead of 25.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And the original equipment that was in that building was put in the 80s, and we just
40
replaced
years.
it. We just
Wow.
replaced
I know.
our interior
A
units.
lot of Band-Aids and
Like a
bubble
year
gum
and a
on that
half
one.
ago, and we have had more problems with these new units than we
I
had
think-
with our
yeah,
40-year-old
I think
equipment
Frank
that was
wa-
in there.
I think Frank was saying it's been they had to switch it out twice in the last 7 years or something like that.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's just like, oh, the compressor's gone down,
Yeah.
or the control panel has gone down. Or,
Meanwhile,
and
there's
I'm
an
like,
AC unit that's been running for 50 years somewhere else. And it's just like they just don't make things like they used to.
Yeah,
So
it's-
cheap nowadays.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a struggle, and I feel like
Job security, product obsolescence. I'm not
Right.
sure what they want to
Yeah.
buzz term
I
that
know.
That situation.
I
But
know.
there's something.
there's definitely, something there.
there.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what it is. There's definitely something there.
Somebody's looking for
I literally
something
threatened
on
my
the back end.
HVAC contractor. I'm like, you're here so much, I'm going to find an office for you,
Uh-huh.
and you're just not going to leave.
No, you need to be paying us
Yeah.
rent.
So who's been like a mentor along your journey that you would say has helped you a lot?
My prior boss, who hopefully he will listen to this at some point, Steve Altoff. I worked for him for over 20 years. He started about 6 months after I did, and I was 20 something at the time, and I thought I knew everything, and I can still remember kind of mouthing off to him in the beginning.
It's usually the ones you have the best relationship with it afterwards, right?
Right. So he was definitely a mentor, and he was in my role prior to this, and he was over all the managers, and he was also handling leasing and over the leasing agents. But it just taught me probably everything that I know about the business and the industry and how to have relationships with people. And I remember very early on in my career being out on properties with him and having him take the lead on conversations with tenants that were maybe a little sticky, and I do the same thing now with my people. I'm out, taking the lead on some things that could be a little bit hard, and kind of and you learn from experiencing that
Right.
and walking through it and hearing other
Thank
people
you.
having those conversations.
You can read it as much as you want, but until you
Yeah.
experience it, it's totally
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest disconnect between the current generation, like ourselves, and that new generation coming up. It's not just the lack of experience. It's mentorship is also something I think
Right.
that lacks, and,
Right.
and that we could use a lot more of.
Right.
A lot of the organizations that we're all members of locally. Everybody offers a mentorship program.
Right.
And so I would encourage those that want to get into the industry, join a mentorship program. That's really the best. That's really the best start, I would say, for anybody that wanted to get into the industry. Find a mentor.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to be great at something, emulate that with those that are already great at it.
Right.
You don't need to go through 10, 20 years of pain, sweat, and tears when you can just sit with the individual that's already done it and
Right.
just do what they tell you.
Right.
Learn it from them,
Right.
and you can shorten your time into the industry drastically.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that's
Where do you think the industry is going in the next 5 years?
I definitely feel like we are seeing a little bit, we're seeing a dip for sure in the economy. We've got a lot of national tenants this past year and a half that have filed for bankruptcy and are closing their locations. and our centers, we've experienced Party City, Joann Fabrics, Big Lots, Buddy's Home Furnishings, like we have all of those tenants in our centers. So we're now re-tenanting those spaces, and in some situations it's a good thing. We've got those were long-term leases that those tenants have been there where they've exercised.
Those are huge,
multiple options.
Big
spaces.
Yeah, those are big spaces.
Yes, but in most cases rents were really, really low. Really
so you're
low.
capturing current market value.
Yeah.
So we're in some of those situations we're able to recapture those spaces, and now we're turning around and our market rents are a lot higher than they were then, and so we're actually able to increase value in that way.
Are you finding tenants for these large scale 15, 20, 30,000 square foot spaces, or is it a mixture of subdividing them, or and then you end up with a little bit of leftover space?
We have not had to do that. Now I know Aldi is doing that in some of the locations where they've taken over Winn-Dixie locations,
but they won't take the whole thing.
They are taking the whole thing. It's on them.
Okay.
It's on them to sublease that space that they're not using. So they are taking the whole box.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And they're subdividing it themselves.
They are.
Very interesting.
They are, and and
Offsetting
in that
their own
case,
costs.
that was
it's a good idea.
An existing Winn-Dixie spot that was already under lease for that whole the whole space. So they're coming in and taking what they need, and whatever's left over, they're going out and trying to sublet that space.
Right.
Yeah, with their own real estate people. So that has worked. We've had some like Party City location in St. Pete's being taken over by Rack Room Shoes. They actually won that lease through the bankruptcy court. They bought that lease. So they took it straight from Party City, and now they're going to be opening up that location. We've got some interest in some of the Big Lots locations, but nothing that's final yet. But we do have interest in it, and the rents are looking better than what that original lease was. So, yeah. So I think we're going to continue to see some of that.
Right.
We are also seeing a little bit of a downward trend in some sales of some of our smaller tenants, and I think they are being squeezed by so much right now.
Yeah.
Like their utility costs are increasing. Their
Everything's
cost of goods
increasing.
Their employee cost is increasing.
Well, and then that affects
They're having to raise their own individual costs, which is
and then
sales.
consumers don't have as much money to spend,
Right.
So they have less money and more expenses.
Right. Yeah. So I definitely think that's gonna
playing tight on the margins.
That's gonna probably end up with us losing some tenants eventually. We haven't yet at this point, but I kind of see that trend going.
Wendy's just closed. A bunch of underperforming, and I think even the out parcel on us. Yeah, Sembler has over in what is it right there on 54 and Sun Lake. Isn't that Sembler property, that public shopping center?
Oh, it was
that Wendy's.
Yeah, that Wendy's is closed.
Okay.
Yeah,
we
sold that center.
down. So I've seen a lot of Wendy's closed down, which that out parcel opportunity now, whether it's ground leased or whether they're gonna dump that on the open market as a real estate deal. I don't know what Wendy's position is going to be on a lot of that, but you're talking like 150 some underperforming locations.
Yeah.
And I didn't really see that one that closed as underperforming. Hell, there was a line there every time I went to get a burger.
Yeah. Right.
It's a high school right up the street.
Yeah.
I mean,
but there's so much coming around
walk
here.
From the high school there at lunchtime. So,
yeah.
There's so much. There's the growth here on 54 is just astronomical all the way down to 56.
It really is.
Turning into iDrive.
It really is. Yeah. When we were doing that first development, the Trinity Center, there was nothing out there yet. All of that stuff was like to come, right? So our leasing team did a fantastic job going out and actually kind of they created a program where it showed like the little cars driving. It was given driving counts and going into like the future neighborhoods and saying
tour.
It was cool. But it's blown up. I mean, I still remember the first time I drove out to that property before we even started the development. I was like, there's nothing out here.
I remember because I lived in Trinity and I saw Ballantrae. We were looking at a house over there. I'm like, that's too far.
Yeah.
And now Wesley Chapel, it's just.
That's actually what brought me to one of the strongest reasons to come to Tampa. I did Eclipse Building Corp did all the tenant spaces for Market Hall at Tampa Premium Outlet. Simon Mall was a great client of ours. And so I went out there for a pre-construction meeting. VCC already had the mall under construction, so I just went out there to look at getting started on the interiors. I'm northbound 275. I'm on the phone with my office going, you guys gave me the wrong address. There's something out here. Like, I'm getting deeper into God's country here. And I literally got off the expressway and pushing.
They had 3 lanes at that time.
Yeah,
already,
they had already
right?
built 3 lanes in each direction. It's just cow fields for 10 miles in each direction, even Wesley Chapel. There was literally nothing out there. They've redone that interchange twice
now it's
already.
So busy.
Wow.
So busy.
That's really what sealed it for me. I thought, my God, 10-minute outside drive from downtown Tampa, and you can buy 1,000 acres of virgin land, even to this day.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's the nice thing about the West Coast versus the East Coast.
Yeah, I call South Florida the Manhattan of the South, right? You have the ocean, the Everglades, Palm Beach, Miami. That's it. It's all built out.
Yeah.
You got a little Central Park in the middle somewhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's, they're usually landfills. You got a couple of landfills scattered around, But otherwise, unless you're going to redevelop an entire city block, and you're going vertical, which is a lot of what St. Pete is experiencing today.
Now, right.
There's just no more raw land available to go horizontal anymore. You have to go vertical, and they're struggling to.
Or they're doing tear down and rebuilds. So
tear down and rebuilds of the same
especially
type of product.
Since the storm last year, like how many houses have you seen now where they're just demoing
they're just jacking it up in the air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going through all that trouble, and all you're doing is lifting at 8 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tampa is a remarkable area, stripe for growth. I think we're very well insulated from everything else that's going on around the country. Yeah. We go to these economic development summits and things like this, and everybody speaks doom and gloom.
Right.
Interest rates and
industrial
tariffs
is going to go
down.
down.
Oh, my God. Office leases are going to bankrupt the entire market economies of the world. You know what I mean? It's like, what? It's like a couple of office buildings in New York, are underperforming. And we just think that the markets are just in free fall.
Right.
I don't see it here in Tampa. Or
I will tell you, it's not happening in our retail
down a little
stuff.
bit, but I think Florida is pretty well insulated right now. Knock on wood, but I think the way here, especially in Tampa, the growth has been astronomical, and they've said that the money that's come in for the people that have left, it has replaced them by like $80,000 per person or something like that. So we're seeing that influx. So I would assume we'll pretty insulated, and they'll be bringing businesses over here too. So I think we're pretty good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for where the market's going.
Our centers remain at a very high occupancy rate. We're just we don't have a whole lot of inventory available.
And you have above average rents?
I would say, we definitely. We're always pushing the markets.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're driving the market up.
But you're Class A, and so.
Yeah, everything's,
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Why Sembler? You're right. There's lots of property management companies out there, and they've been around for just as long as Sembler. But why Sembler? What would you want to bring others that are in the property management industry, whether you're a retailer, whether you're a developer, a property owner, whether you're a leasing agent, another property manager, you're looking to get into this industry, stay in this industry, or find a home? Why Sembler?
One of the things that we always talk to people about as we're pitching our services is we have the ability to look at your property through the eyes of an owner, because we are developers and we're building our own shopping centers, and probably 35 to 40% of our portfolio is are Sembler owned properties. And then we have an investment fund where we're also purchasing properties that we're 50% equity partners with someone else. So then we have that piece that's also in our portfolio, and then the rest of it is third-party owners where we're actually offering them a service to manage and lease their properties, but we don't have an ownership stake in their properties.
So typical property management is only about a third of your portfolio and your workload.
Right. And if you say typical, because we are managing all of those other properties as well, we're just managing them from a little bit of a different ownership.
You buy and build, basically, yeah.
So we have the ability to look at their property as an owner, and we advise as if it was our own property. How would we handle it? So we get that question a lot with our third-party owners, like, what would you do if this was yours?
Right.
So we can offer the guidance that way, and that we kind of feel like that's one of our superpowers, that we can do that. There's not some of our competitors can do that also, but a lot of our competitors that are building and owning their own companies, that's all they do. Or owning their own centers. They're not doing the third party management as well. Or you've got a company that's only doing third party management.
Right. So that makes you guys stand out from the rest.
As a third party manager, you got to be hyper focused on the developer, the tenants. Once you take an ownership interest, if you're a half owner in it, you're looking at it much differently.
Right.
As opposed to if you own the entire center outright.
Right. And I think
management is management.
Right. And I think really what it does is it turns it into more of an asset management. So now you're not just looking at these are the things that need to happen, but these are the things that are going to happen that are going to increase the value for your property.
Your revenue generator isn't tied to a percentage of the rental income in exchange for managerial services. Your managerial services now drive the value of the property, which is ultimately driving your ultimate growth and valuation as well. So, vested interest is what you get with Sembler, it sounds like.
Yes, definitely. We've got just a stellar reputation in the market. They are always looking. They're always going to do the right thing. Like it isn't. I'm not going to do this because it's going to take money out of my pocket. And I will give you a prime example. On a Sembler-owned center, we have a mom and pop tenant that comes to us and says, "My air conditioning unit's not working, and I know it's my responsibility, but I don't have the $10,000 to fix it." The assemblers will typically agree to pay for half of it, even though it's not their responsibility, but it's the right thing to do.
Right.
We're financing back into their rent somehow because it's in Sembler's interest really to have functional, good equipment. You don't want
we face the same thing. Like we have a company that they have cameras on the site, and then some vandalism happened, and they're charging us for the. And it's just like, well, it's just, the right thing to do. It's, it's no one's fault, but rather than I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. It's just like, let's come to an agreement and let's work something out.
Right. And you've got, yes, there's definitely black and white. There's the black and white of the lease.
Right.
But then there's these gray areas that come in when you're handling people and relationships and different things like that.
And that's where the relationships come back to front and center, because people will remember when you say, nope, sorry, it's in the lease.
Right.
Versus, let's see how we can help you.
You got to be flexible.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you got to be able to pivot. And you can't just be, you know what I mean? Because that doesn't build relationships, right? And so some Sembler has a lot of flexibility. They're able to pivot.
Yes.
They're able to provide a lot of different services. It sounds not just property management, but asset allocations and growth.
Yeah.
Well, that is fantastic. Sue.
Yes.
We're going to quasi-dox you. We're going to drop all your information into a little link below at the end of this thing.
Okay.
But I also want to get some information out, too, on the Salvation Army, the Angel Tree.
Okay.
And because that sounds like a fantastic
Angel Tree
program. I think
program.
her and I would want to get involved
Right.
in
We
that
do
well.
every quarter. We do something, and with a nonprofit, especially in the community, so that way we can give back. So we would love to help out.
Okay.
Yeah, and so thank you very much for coming in today and
Thank
spending
you.
some time with us. We're going to put a bunch of information out there for Sembler and for Salvation Army.
Sounds good.
And we hope to have you back soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm your contractor.
And I'm your accountant.
And thank you to Miss Sue. We'll catch you next week.